Hey there, so I'll be sharing my screen. So I started on this painting yesterday. It was super basic, and honestly I was kind of struggling with it. It wasn't where I wanted it to be, and it's still getting there, but I'm going to continue it today. I did work on it a little bit earlier in the day because I wanted it to look better. Yesterday it felt like it was just a ton of little different blobs. Yesterday it felt like it was just a ton of little different blobs. Let me look for some music. So I'm just gonna put on some lo-fi. So since I have the image up on the screen already, let me turn off the one that I have in my iPad. Okay, where do I want to start? I think I want to work on her lips a little bit. I was kind of having trouble with the lips earlier. The corners of her mouth curl up a little bit. So we're gonna try to capture that using shadow. have to go get some water. Oh, I was muted. Hey there, Backdoor. How are you? Thanks for letting me know. I'm kind of having trouble with her eye because of the perspective. Since we're kind of looking at her from the bottom up. But you know what? We're just going to do what we can. So for the eye, we really want to capture that it's a sphere. I totally did that on the wrong layer, but that's okay. There are like so many layers. I should just like stop using so many layers because I'm just forgetting what goes on what layer, and then I create even more layers because I forgot what layer I was on, and then it just becomes a big mess. So now I have to, since I drew that eye on the wrong layer and it was the very first layer, I have to create another layer because I want to draw her eyelids, which would be wrapping around the sphere of the eyeball. So you want that to be in front. And for her eyelid, we're gonna go with a really dark dark muted brown. We don't need to do black. I feel like black can start making something look cartoonish. And you can always darken something up at the end when you play around with the levels or the curves. So we're trying to capture her lower lid. And I'm just drawing a little bit of eyelashes because the lower lid, you can just, what is it? You can just draw the eyelashes to fake the lower lids instead of drawing a straight line. I remember eyeballs are not white. They should always be like a paler shade of whatever the skin tone is, or a very, very pale gray. So working on her upper eyelid, just try to capture the shadow between the curves of her lids. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the other eye. So let's do some work on the other eye. But before I do that, I want to draw some of the highlights on her lips. I feel like once you put highlight on something, it just makes it look more realistic. So she should have the most highlight on her lower lips. Because your lower lips protrude a little bit further out than your upper lips. So the lower lips tend to capture more light. And since the perspective is looking at her kind of toward the bottom up, that's why we're seeing more highlight on her upper lips because of the perspective. Alright, let's move on to her other eye now. So I want to go back and look for that layer that had the other eyeball and try to stay on the same layer. So we'll start with her pupils, so it doesn't look like she's a ghost or a zombie. Just working on the mid-tones in her eyes, the mid-blue. You can think of values in terms of 3 values: a dark, a mid-tone, and then a light. So obviously there are a lot more values. There's an infinite amount of values, but you want to simplify it into 3s: light, dark, and then mid-tone. And then you add more from there depending on how realistic you want to achieve. So now I'm working on the lightest shade in her eye. And the darkest part in the eye should be the iris. And then the edges are usually pretty dark too, but not as dark as the iris. Now finally for the whites of her eyes, which is from her light source. It looks like she has really bright lights in front of her from taking the photo. I'm getting like super hot in here. I have to turn off the heater. It's warm. It was so cold earlier today. So I had the heater on, and then now I got too warm. Okay, so I'm not gonna get too hung up on the eyes, the pupils. So I'm gonna try to move on to the lids now. So I want to pick a warm dark brown. Unless you're doing like line art, you don't want to do black. You want to use black if you're doing like line art or if you're trying to achieve that cartoon look, like an outlined drawing. But if you want something to look a little bit more realistic, then I would avoid black. Like at the end, you can add a little bit of like touches of black to emphasize certain parts. But black tends to look too harsh, and it can make something look cartoony really quick. I accidentally drew on her face. Okay. We'll just erase that really quick and pretend it never happened. Now we want to do the folds in her lid, and the fold on her lids would be slightly lighter than her lash line. Since her lash line has hair on it, the hair would create a shadow that would make it look darker, and she's also wearing makeup. But the lid line would be a little bit lighter. I'm like having trouble getting the angle. Okay, that was a little bit too big. Let's make the brush smaller. A fine tip brush. Just gonna make it light at first, and then we can always darken it later. She has several folds. So let's focus on the cast shadow at the corners of her eyes. Her lashes are creating a cast shadow. Oh, you don't talk a lot, you're just chilling? Hey, no worries. You totally don't have to talk. I'm happy you're just chilling. There's no pressure. So we just want to create the shape of the shadows underneath her eyes. I'm just trying to get the general shape of the shadow, and then we can always go back to fine-tuning. I like using purple for shadows, so I'm gonna pick a purple that I used earlier, almost like a lilac purple, and then we're gonna draw a very subtle purple line under her lids. I think colored shadows look so much prettier than regular black. And everything has color in it. You kind of just decide what color are you going for? Are you going for a cool tone or a warm tone? But shadows are generally cool tone. But you kind of have to be careful with cool tones because that can make something look very dead, like they're a zombie. So shadows tend to look better when you make them warm tone or colored. It just adds a nice warmth so they don't look like they're zombies. I love this peach eyeshadow that she's wearing, like glossy peach. It's so pretty. So I'm just going to emphasize the orange in her eyeshadow in the middle here. This is like the mid-tone, the bright mid-tone section of her eye. like a streak of coral. So our eyeshadow is darker right here because it's moving backwards or going back toward her head. So anything that goes away from the center of the face would be darker. And then let's find like a nice lilac pink for the outer corners of her eyes. There's a little bit of a blue cast shadow by her hair. So I want to capture that blue cast shadow. So we'll add that cast shadow beneath her hair. So we don't have to worry about like the edges of the shadow in front of her hair. That doesn't look blue enough. That looks too gray. Alright, so let's do her lower lashes. I forgot to do that earlier. So again, we want to have a small brush size. Actually, I'm going to switch to a regular round brush because I don't really want any texture. It's so hard to draw like a fine line with this pen. As awesome as the Apple Pencil is, it does have a hard time drawing fine lines, like making really pointy lines. But I gotta say, I do have the older generation. It's like the first one that came out, so I don't know if the newer ones are better. So whenever you put a really dark line down, you have to make sure that there's enough contrast and then there's darkness somewhere else to balance it out. So after I drew that really dark shadow in the corner of her eye, I realized that the other part of her eye where her outer lashes are wasn't dark enough. So the shadow is just popping out too much. Okay, I'm pretty happy with how the eyes look. Thank you, Boomat, for the follow. Hope you're doing well today. Thank you, Backdoor. It took me a while to get it to a place that I like. I started on it yesterday, and I felt like yesterday it was just looking like a blob. But it usually starts out that way, looking like a blob. Oh, thank you so much, Booma. I always hate like how my art looks at first. And I had a teacher who told me, oh, you know, art is always going to be ugly first before you get it to a place that you like. But I guess anything that's worthwhile in the end has to have some difficulty attributed to it, right? To make it worthwhile in the end. So we'll add highlight around her eyes, and highlight always makes something look a lot more realistic. Oops, that was a little bit too much. So I want to make a light yellow for the highlights. I really like colored highlights. You rarely ever want to use straight white, because there's rarely anything that's like super white in nature. Usually everything in shadows and in light, there's typically a tint of a color to it. I should try to work on a little bit of her hair. Just looks like this face that's like popping out of I don't know, like a super graphic blue space. Oh, okay, this hair is gonna be hard. I always have such a hard time with hair. Working on her hair makes me feel like I'm trying to glue down a lace wig. I probably shouldn't have made the lines so harsh when I was drawing this at first. So we'll just erase that and try to kind of do over. Okay, so I'm gonna just pick the color from her actual hair from this photo here. That seems way too dark. What about this color? Okay, I need to break up the hair into basic shapes, small basic shapes. Try not to focus so much on the details. That's a little bit too bright. Okay, curly hair is so hard. Okay, it'd be so much easier if I just make a selection. But that's okay. We almost got it. We almost got that darkness in her hair. Oh, I think that really made a difference. Now her head looks like it actually has some dimension. And it's not just a floaty bobby head. Just trying to capture the shadow in the back of her hair. Change the background. The background is looking a little bit too dark right now, so we'll use hue saturation. woke up. So I've been using ProCreate for literally 1 week, but I have a lot of experience using Photoshop. So when I was in college, I took a lot of Photoshop classes and Illustrator. So I'm very familiar with digital painting, like how paintbrushes work. And I came from a traditional art background as well. And I've been using Photoshop for years, since college. And then I decided to try ProCreate because I was watching a bunch of like YouTube reviews, and a lot of artists were talking about ProCreate, so I decided to try it out. And yeah, I do really like it so far. It's very comparable to, I don't know if you've ever tried Adobe Sketch. So that was like the first drawing app that I used on my iPad, Adobe Sketch. And I feel like ProCreate is a better version of Adobe Sketch. It has a lot more options, it has a lot more brushes, and it has better selection tools. And it has a lot more artistic style type of, like traditional style type of drawing, like charcoal and pastel. There are a lot more options, and I feel like it looks more realistic in ProCreate. For Adobe Sketch, it didn't really look very realistic to me. I don't know, like something just looked off. It wasn't very fluid, especially the paints in Adobe Sketch. The paints in Adobe Sketch looked really off. Like the watercolor was pretty good, but the acrylic and the oils were terrible. I didn't feel like they looked how it looked in real life, but in ProCreate the paints look fantastic. The paints look a lot more realistic, and you can change the settings to your paintbrushes so that you can have more of a custom brush, more of what you like. Also, there are a lot of ProCreate streamers. Oh, I haven't seen the streamers. I've seen a lot of just YouTube videos. So like the edited videos. I should check out the streamers though. What did I use to mirror iPad? I can tell you right now. It took me forever to find an app that mirrors the iPad because a lot of them charge, and they're pretty expensive. I forgot, I think you have to pay like a monthly fee, maybe like $10 a month, or there's an annual fee. I think the annual fee is like close to 100. Oops. But I'm using this app. I've had it for over a month and I haven't had to pay. It's called, oops, let me try to find the name for you. It's called a PowerSoft. Not sure if you can see that. It's so tiny. So it's called a PowerSoft. You can download it. I think it works with both Apple and Windows. So this one I haven't had to pay. And I've had it for over a month. A lot of the mirror applications, they do have a free trial. So I'm pretty sure I don't have to pay for it since I'm still using it. It'll just ask you to like upgrade. And I think if you upgrade to the paid version, then it gives you more features. I don't really know what those features are, but the free version does everything I need it to do. So I'm happy with it. I'm like totally making her hair like super abstract because curly hair is so hard for me. So I'm just gonna pretend that I'm intentionally making it look like it's an abstract painting. Oh, I didn't know you can use QuickTime to mirror iPad. QuickTime, are you talking about like QuickTime, the video player? So I'm using an iPad, but I have a Windows PC, so I'm not sure if QuickTime would work to mirror an iPad with a Windows PC. No, I'm not on a Mac. I'm on a Windows PC. Yeah, I know. I've had a Mac before, and they charge you for, I mean, if you don't have a Mac, then like, it doesn't work very well. Their programs typically only work if you use a Mac. So it was hard finding a program for Windows. From Pinterest. I just went on Pinterest and I just looked for portraits, like female portraits. And it looks like an Instagram picture. Yeah, so I don't know who this is. It's just a really pretty girl from Pinterest, like I guess like most pretty girls from Pinterest or Instagram. Yeah, I find a lot of my inspiration from Pinterest. And I just really like to draw people. I love to draw faces, different types of faces. Instagram is also a really good place to find inspiration too. Like, what did we do before Instagram? I guess just Google Images. Oh, my voice is sore? I hope you don't mean sore. I hope you mean soft. I get that my voice is soft a lot. Ever since I was growing up, people would always point out that my voice is like super high pitch. When I was in middle school, someone said my voice was like a chipmunk. I guess it still kind of is. I like to think that my voice matured a little bit, but honestly it hasn't changed that much from middle school to now. Okay, I usually don't do curly hair, and this curly hair is tough. But that's okay. You know, it's good practice. Good practice for the next time that I try to draw curly hair. When I picked the picture, I didn't even think about the curly hair. I've done commissions before. I haven't done them lately in a really long time. And I didn't do many commissions before. When I was doing commissions, it was like in college, just to like get myself through school, and I've only done like a handful of them. And I didn't do art for a really long time. After college, I was studying a different career field. I was studying, 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 the tech industry, so doing software development. So I took a break from art for a really, really long time. And then I would just do like sketches here and there. So I would just do sketches, and then yeah, I just did art very much on and off. And then I did a lot of I did a lot of traditional art, like painting by hand. And I didn't really do a lot of illustration. For illustrations, for illustrations digitally, I usually would create non-human figures. So I usually would draw like little cartoons, or what do you call it, like flowers in like a really graphic cartoon type of style, kind of like my sweater, like how it's really graphic and simple. So I did a lot of digital drawings like that, more like graphic art or graphic design. And I would do portraits in traditional painting, like oil painting. I really enjoy oil painting. And I recently just picked up digital art. I recently just picked up portrait painting in digital art. So I was used to doing a lot of cartoons and simple graphics in Photoshop before. And then I would say like about a month ago, I started doing digital painting in Photoshop, and I really enjoyed portrait painting in Photoshop. So then I started to look into other apps, because I'm pretty decent at Photoshop, but I do feel like it's very complicated, like especially when you're still first learning something. So for me, doing portrait painting in Photoshop was new. So even though I was already pretty decent in Photoshop, having learned it in school and doing a lot of cartoon type of drawings before, it was kind of a challenge to learn to paint like realistically in Photoshop, because there are like so many different types of art brushes you can use, and then you have to go find the brushes to download it. That's the thing about Photoshop that I don't like. You really have to go out of your way to hunt for brushes, or you can create brushes yourself, I guess. So the nice thing about ProCreate is they have the brushes there for you. And then also in Photoshop, you have to sit down at a computer to use it. So I don't always want to have to use like a mouse and pen. So it's nice to be able to carry the iPad around and use that as well. Well, I guess you can you can use Adobe Sketch, and you can use Photoshop on the iPad too, but the Photoshop on the iPad doesn't have a lot of features unless they changed it, but I'm not aware that they changed it. The last time I used it, it was like a dumbed down version of Photoshop. And I can't believe ProCreate is only $10. Like, you only have to pay that one-time fee of $10. That's kind of crazy to me. Especially when you think about how Photoshop is like $20 a month. Whatever company invented ProCreate, they did a very good job. Because I feel like Adobe has such a monopoly on the market. So it's good to see that there's competition. I feel like when there's competition, the corporations try much harder to have a better product, and I think maybe that's why Adobe Sketch kind of sucked. Like when the Apple Pencil first came out, I was so excited about it, and they were advertising the Apple Pencil with the Adobe Sketch program, and I think that was like the only program at the time where you could do sketching with tools, with paintbrushes that would behave similar to traditional art tools like the pencil tool and charcoal and all of that. So there weren't really a lot of apps at that time. At least I wasn't aware of it. So I was a little bit disappointed with Adobe Sketch, and I'm glad that someone else came out with an app that's like so much better than what they had, and I think it was because like at that time they had a monopoly on the market, so they didn't really care about like making a better product. Since they have like so many products. It's like when you have so many products, how do you have like the resources to create even more products? So that app was a little bit disappointing. But ProCreate does not disappoint so far. I would say there is like a little bit of a learning curve, but if you have like experience with Photoshop already, it should be pretty easy to figure out. And of course there are like a lot of videos as well that you can always look up. I'm gonna add some lilac to her hair too, just because I do have some purple cast shadows around her face. So I think adding lilac as highlights to the hair would look really pretty. So she has some highlight here. I'm gonna make that kind of a lilac color. Just a little bit, and then we'll add some more blue too. I'm gonna add a little bit more bright blue highlights around her hair. Like a cyan, a bright cyan. There's like a piece of highlight right here. And then we'll do a little bit more highlight. So highlight there. some tossed hair. Okay, so I think, am I done with the hair for now? Sometimes I just want to move on and then come back once if I spend too long on a section, I get kind of bored of it. So let me just do the pieces of hair hanging out in front of her face. And then after we do those strands, we'll try to clean up the neck. Why is that not filling in? Did I lock the layer? Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm trying to clean up the shadow right here. I have to go back to the neck now. I made that bright highlight in the shadow area. Her neck looks totally weird. I drew the neck like terribly, so now it looks so bad. That's why you should always draw something right the first time, so you don't have to spend time correcting it later. Oh, ban? Okay. I didn't even see it. Let me see. Thanks for letting me know. The spam bots are so annoying. make her neck a little bit messy because why not? As I start to draw like parts of the body, I like to just be a little bit looser with it and just make it look abstract. So I think it adds an element of interest. Okay, yeah, I banned Logan, the spam bot. Earlier, I had blocked him, and I didn't realize block was different from ban. I'm still learning to use Twitch. Streaming on Twitch is pretty new to me too. I've used Twitch before just as a viewer. So just adding a little bit of light on her upper lip. Kinda looks like she has a mustache now. Let me blend that out a little bit. So I think all that's really left is to keep doing like the details around her face to fine tune it. I should erase these. Oh, I'll erase it later because I don't want to go through my hundreds of layers to look for it. Let's see, the shadows on her face could be a little bit darker. I should do a purple shadow on her neck. I had to redo that because I got the light and the shadow. So you don't want to mix light in your shadows, because then that'll just make the shadows look really muddy. And then we'll do some purple on the neck as well. I want that purple to be a little bit darker. Oh, that's a little bit too much. So that purple kind of just ties in the colors like back to her face. So it looks like she kind of has purple light hitting her instead of just like a purple blob out of nowhere. And you can add whatever color you want in the shadows. You just have to make sure that the tone is consistent with the rest of the face. But really, you can have shadow any color. And I think adding color also makes it look better than just having black. Using black can make it look unrealistic sometimes too. Just adding a little bit of orange underneath her nose, because your nose has a lot of red tint to it. I think because of like the blood vessels around your nose. So your nose tends to be more red compared to the rest of your face. Like your nose and your eyes are very red. And like I said, I think it's because of the nerve endings. Then I want to darken underneath her lips, make it a little bit more prominent, that dark shadow, just so that it pops out more. this little shadow underneath her mouth to really emphasize that it's protruding. Alright. Oh wow, it's midnight already. I think I'm done with this for the night. I'll probably work on it some more tomorrow. It turned out pretty good. I'm not sure if anyone was here last night, but last night it looked not great. I should have taken a screenshot of it and shared what it looked like before, but it was not very good. It just looked like really bad shapes of color shadows. So I'm gonna take a little break and then I'm gonna come back and play some video games. So if anyone wants to stay and hang out, that would be cool. If not, that's great too. I hope you enjoyed this painting as much as I do. I had a really good time painting it. Do I have a picture of what it looked like before? I have a before picture, but this was when it was starting to get better. Can't really see it. This was when it was starting to get better, but when it was like just 3 colors, it looked really bad. I gotta take like more progress pictures. Alright, so I'm gonna be right back, and then when I come back, I'm gonna play some video games. I'm gonna play Shadowlands, World of Warcraft, so I'll see you guys later, but if you stick around, that'll be cool. Be right back.